What is up, everybody? We're on day 99 of our Bible in a Year series, continuing on in 1 Kings. And yeah, we're going to get to see some stuff today that David wanted to do. Or at least David wanted to start, but God told him no. That was reserved for Solomon. We don't know 100% the reason why, but it was reserved for Solomon. So we'll jump straight into it once I share my screen. 1 Kings chapter 4, and we will start. The best place to start a chapter is the first verse. So, King Solomon reigned over all Israel, and these were his officials: Azariah, son of Zadok, priest Elihoreph, and Ahijah, the sons of Shisha, secretaries; Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, court historian; Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, in charge of the army; Zadok and Abiathar, priests; Azariah, son of Nathan, in charge of the deputies; Zabud, son of Nathan, a priest and advisor to the king; Ahishar, in charge of the palace; and Adoniram, son of Abda, in charge of forced labor. Solomon had 12 deputies for all Israel. They provided food for the king and his household. Each one made provisions for 1 month out of the year. These were all their names: Ben-Hur in the hill country of Ephraim; Ben-Decker in Makaz, Shalbim, Beth Shemesh, and El-Beth Hanan; Ben-Hesed in Arubath. He had Soka and the whole land of Hefer; Ben-Abinadab in all Nepheth Dor. Tophath, daughter of the Solomon, was his wife. Bana, son of Ahilud in Tanakh Megiddo, and Beth Shean, which is beside Zerathon, below Jezreel, from Beth Shean to Abel Meholah, as far as the other side of Jokmeam. These names are a lot of fun to pronounce. Ben Geber in Ramoth Gilead. He had the villages of Jair, son of Manasseh, which are in Gilead, and he had the region of Argob, which is in Bashan, 60 great cities with walls and bronze bars. Ahinadab, son of Edo, in Mahanaim; Ahimaaz in Naphtali. He also had married a daughter of Solomon, Basemath; Bana, son of Hushai, in Asher and Bealoth; Jehoshaphat, son of Paruah, in Issachar; Shemiah, son of Elah, in Benjamin; Geber, son of Uri, in the land of Gilead, the country of King Sihon of the Amorites, and of King Og of Bashan. There was one deputy in the land of Judah. Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand by the sea. They were eating, drinking, and rejoicing. Solomon ruled all the kingdoms from the Euphrates River to the land of the Philistines, as far as the border of Egypt. They offered tribute and served Solomon all the days of his life. Solomon's provisions for 1 day were 180 bushels of fine flour and 360 bushels of meal, 10 fattened cattle, 20 range cattle, and 100 sheep and goats, besides deer, gazelles, roebucks, and pen-fed poultry. For he had dominion over everything west of the Euphrates, from Tifsah to Gaza, and over all the kings west of the Euphrates. He had peace on all his surrounding borders throughout Solomon's reign. Judah and Israel lived in safety from Dan to Beersheba, each person under his own vine and his own fig tree. Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots, and 12,000 horsemen. Each of those deputies for a month in turn provided food for King Solomon and for everyone who came to King Solomon's table. They neglected nothing. Each man brought the barley and straw for the chariot teams and the other horses to the required place according to his assignment. It's Kind of unique seeing how the work is divided there in Solomon's kingdom and specifically in Solomon's house. Um, the idea that it's split up for each month, a different person is kind of unique. Okay. 29. God gave Solomon wisdom, very great insight and understanding, as vast as the sand of the seashore. Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all the people of the east, greater than all the wisdom of Egypt. He was wiser than anyone, wiser than Ethan the Ezrahite, and Heman, Calcol, and Darda, sons of Mahol. His reputation extended to all the surrounding nations. Solomon spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. He spoke about trees from the cedar in Lebanon to the hyssop growing out of the wall. He also spoke about animals, birds, reptiles, and fish. Emissaries of all peoples, sent by every king on earth who had heard of his wisdom, came to listen to Solomon's wisdom. Everybody around there is coming to hear what he has to say. So his wisdom is not only benefiting Israel, but it's actually very seems very likely it is actually benefiting the nations around them too. King Hiram of Tyre, we're in chapter 5. King Hiram of Tyre sent his emissaries to Solomon when he heard that he had been anointed king in his father's place, for Hiram had always been friends with David. Solomon sent this message to Hiram. You know, my father David was not able to build a temple for the name of the Lord his God. This was because of the warfare all around him until the Lord put his enemies under his feet. The Lord my God has now given me rest on every side. There is no enemy or misfortune. So I plan to build a temple for the name of the Lord my God. According to what the Lord promised my father David, I will put your son on your throne in your place, and he will build the temple for my name. Therefore, command that cedars from Lebanon be cut down for me. My servants will be with your servants, and I will pay your servants' wages, according to whatever you say. For you know that not a man among us knows how to cut timber like the Sidonians. When Hiram heard Solomon's words, he rejoiced greatly and said, Blessed be the Lord today. He has given David a wise son to be over his great people. So I'm sure there's some truth to this, but he's also like he is saying things here, if you can see on my screen, saying that he wants this other king, the King Hiram, Hiram, how do we say it? Hiram, maybe. Anyways, he wants that king, his servants to help cut down. He wants that king's servants to help his own servants cut down these trees, and he is actually going to pay this other king's servants wages for that, and he's talking them up to nobody knows how to cut timber like the Sidonians. Okay, verse 8. Then Hiram sent Then Hiram sent a reply to Solomon saying, I have heard your message. I will do everything you want regarding the cedar and cypress timber. My servants will bring the logs down from Lebanon to the sea, and I will make them into rafts to go by sea to the place you indicate. I will break them apart there. You can take them away. You then can meet my needs by providing my household with food. So Hiram provided Solomon with all the cedar and cypress timber he wanted, and Solomon provided Hiram with 120,000 bushels of wheat as food for his household and 120,000 gallons of oil from crushed olives. Solomon did this for Hiram year after year. The Lord gave Solomon wisdom as he had promised him. There was a peace between Hiram and Solomon, and the two of them made a treaty. Then King Solomon drafted forced laborers from all Israel. The labor force numbered 30,000 men. He sent 10,000 to Lebanon each month in shifts. 1 month they were in Lebanon, 2 months they were at home. Adoniram was in charge of the forced labor. Solomon had 70,000 porters and 80,000 stonecutters in the mountains, not including his 3,300 deputies. In charge of the work, they supervised the people doing the work. The king commanded them to quarry large, costly stones to lay the foundation of the temple with dressed stones. So Solomon's builders and Hiram's builders, along with the Gibeonites, quarried the stone and prepared the timber and stone for the temple's construction. Chapter 6. Solomon began to build the temple for the Lord in the 480th year after the Israelites came out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of his reign over Israel. In the month of Ziv, which is the 2nd month, the temple that King Solomon built for the Lord was 90 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 45 feet high. The portico in front of the temple sanctuary was 30 feet long, extending across the temple's width, and 15 feet deep in front of the temple. He also made windows with beveled frames for the temple. He then built a chambered structure along the temple wall, encircling the walls of the temple, that is the sanctuary of the inner sanctuary, or sanctuary and the inner sanctuary. And he made side chambers all around. The lowest chamber was 7.5 feet wide, the middle was 9 feet wide, and the third was 10.5 feet wide. He also provided offset ledges for the temple all around the outside so that nothing would be inserted into the temple walls. The temple's construction was finished stones cut at the quarry so that no hammer, chisel, or any iron tool was heard in the temple while it was being built. The door for the lowest side chamber was on the right side of the temple. They went up a stairway in the middle chamber, and from the middle to the third. When he finished building the temple, he paneled it with boards and planks of cedar. He built the chambers along the entire temple, joined to the temple with cedar beams. Each story was 7.5 feet high. The word of the Lord came to Solomon, "As for this temple you are building, if you walk in my statutes, observe my ordinances, and keep all my commands by walking in them, I will fulfill my promise to you, which I made to your father David. I will dwell among the Israelites and not abandon my people." When Solomon finished building the temple, he paneled the interior temple walls with cedar boards. From the temple floor to the surface of the ceiling, he overlaid the interior with wood. He also overlaid the floor with cypress boards. Then he lined 30 feet of the rear of the temple with cedar boards from the floor to the surface of the ceiling. And he built the interior as an inner sanctuary, the most holy place. The temple, that is, the sanctuary in front of the most holy place, was 60 feet long. The cedar paneling inside the temple was carved with ornamental gourds and flower blossoms. Everything was cedar. Not a stone could be seen. He prepared the inner sanctuary inside the temple and put the Ark of the Lord's Covenant there. The interior of the sanctuary was 30 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 30 feet high. He overlaid it with pure gold. He also overlaid the cedar altar. Next, Solomon overlaid the interior of the temple with pure gold, and he hung gold chains across the front of the inner sanctuary and overlaid it with gold. So he added the gold overlay to the entire temple until everything was completely finished, including the entire altar that belongs to the inner sanctuary. In the inner sanctuary, he made 2 cherubim, 15 feet high out of olive wood. One wing of the first cherub was 7.5 feet long. The other wing was 7.5 feet long. The wingspan was 15 feet from tip to tip. The second cherub also was 15 feet. Both cherubim had the same size and shape. The first cherub's height was 15, and so was the second cherub's. Then he put the cherubim inside the inner temple. Since their wings were spread out, the first one's wing touched one wall, while the second cherub's wing touched the other wall. And in the middle of the temple, their wings were touching, wing to wing. He also overlaid the cherubim with gold. He carved all the surrounding temple. I'm just imagining as we're reading this, like, imagine walking in and seeing this. It would have been like nuts. Verse 29. He carved all the surrounding temple walls with carved engravings, cherubim, palm trees, and flower blossoms. In the inner and outer sanctuaries, he overlaid the temple floor with gold in both the inner and the outer sanctuaries. For the entrance of the inner sanctuary, he made olive wood doors. The pillars of the doorposts were 5-sided. The 2 doors were made of olive wood. He carved cherubim, palm trees, and flower blossoms on them and overlaid them with gold, hammering gold over the cherubim and palm trees. In the same way, he made 4-sided olive wood doorposts for the sanctuary entrance. The 2 doors were made of cypress wood. The first door had 2 folding sides. The second door had 2 folding panels. He carved cherubim, palm trees, and flower blossoms on them and overlaid them with gold applied evenly over the carving. He built the inner courtyard with 3 rows of dressed stone and a row of trimmed cedar beams. The foundation of the Lord's temple was laid in Solomon's 4th year in the month of Ziv, in his 11th year in the month of Bol, which is the 8th month. The temple was completed in every detail and according to every specification. So he built it in 7 years. That is crazy to think about. And that is also the end of our reading for today. So, yeah. I wonder if, this is maybe a little bit off topic, I wonder if AI could generate an image. I'm sure there's probably people that have drawn it up or something out there. That'd be interesting to see. Trying to picture it is one thing, but actually being able to visualize it, I think, is something else entirely. So, question 1. Solomon's unparalleled wisdom and prosperity in chapter 4 are gifts from God. How does this abundance challenge us to consider the theological relationship between divine favor and human stewardship in reflecting God's glory? Again, we've talked about this a little bit previously, but I think there are gifts and things that we have. They still would be things that came from God. God gave us, you can breathe because of God. But beyond that, we have, beyond just our naturally occurring gifts and talents and things of that nature, there can be divine gifts. So Solomon maybe was just generally a wise person, but there's something divine God gave him to put him like a step past that, or a step past where he would have been, or a couple steps past where he would have been. But there's, and the reason I want to make this distinction is because I've seen people before who basically have no preparation for anything they do, and the reasoning is, well, if God wants me to do it, he'll just give me the ability, like in the moment. Which, yeah, he can, but I also think it's lazy and negligent to not put in some work beforehand. Question 2. The temple's construction in chapters 5 and 6 is a monumental act of worship. How might its intricate design deepen our understanding of God's holiness and the call to approach him with reverence, anticipating Christ as the true temple? I was hinting on, as we were reading through, the thought of just seeing this. Like, this. So when we saw the tabernacle that was constructed under Moses, that would have been something that would have stood out at the time. And now this temple is being built, and this is something that would stand out. And so I think this is a call to the reverence that we should have for God. Doesn't necessarily mean like your buildings have to be like huge and massive, and like I know people that, or I've seen people that maybe they wouldn't come out and say this, but they basically kind of lean towards this idea that if you don't have a big, like, beautiful church building, then you're really not even a church. And I think that discredits a lot of good ministries. I think that discredits a lot of people in China that are underground churches that are probably serving God more faithfully than many people in the West, including people like myself or people that I know that have made comments like that, and they don't even have a building, right? So I do think there's something to be said about the reverence there and preparing and trying to make things beautiful, but that also should not be our focus. So there's this kind of a little bit of a catch with that. We want to have a little bit of focus on that, but we don't want to be consumed by that. Question 3. Solomon's alliance with Hiram in chapter 5 blends human cooperation with divine purpose. How does this collaboration invite us to reflect on the theological interplay between God's sovereignty and the role of human agency in his redemptive plan? I said, I think it was yesterday's video, maybe it was the day before, if God wants it to happen, it's going to happen. I saw a video recently. It was a pastor who had come under fire, I think unnecessarily come under fire, but he had come under fire because he had made a comment about getting offerings or something like that on a Sunday service. People were talking about like they don't need money and stuff, and essentially he was trying to, because they're trying to get out of the building that they're in. I would say the pastor's name. I am not afraid to acknowledge that. I just genuinely don't remember, and this is just coming off the top of my head. But I remember hearing him talk about it. They had been praying for a building. They had a lot of issues, and they were having issues with the city because their church was growing so much. They had outgrown their building, and it was causing like some pretty significant traffic issues outside of their building. And there was a building they were looking at, but the people that had it were not wanting to sell it, or were wanting too much money for it, or something like that. And these people weren't Christian. They were actually, if I remember correctly, I think he said that they were Jews. Not Messianic Jews, like Orthodox Jews. But he said he ended up getting a text message, and essentially they didn't know why, but all of them started feeling like they should just sell the building to that church for the price that they were asking. And so that, I don't think you can look at the situation and say it's not a God thing. And they're not Christian. They don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God, the Messiah. So I think you would have to be pretty remedial to say God can't use non-Christians to do his will. I think we see that throughout the Bible. I think you probably see it throughout your life too. Just because someone's not a believer doesn't mean that God cannot use them. So that is it for today. Appreciate everybody watching and listening up to this point. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Share this with somebody that you know. Word of mouth is the best way that podcasts spread. So if it's been a blessing to you, share it with somebody else, and it can be a blessing to them as well. Tomorrow we will continue on in 1 Kings, and be good stuff still. We get to see a new age for Israel, and a new, not a new king, it was a continuation of King Solomon, and then we will see some things kind of start to change. Not quite tomorrow, but it's coming up. So appreciate you watching, listening, all that. Thanks. God bless.